I don't know whose sick joke it was to hide all the Kleenexes today, but well done, whoever that was. Fall days. We're going to need that. I got dressed this morning, and I asked Beth, I said, do I look like a preacher? And she said, no. And I said, good. A couple weeks ago, Kirk preached, and he used this term, professional Christian. And that word spoke to me because the night before, I spoke at a youth revival, and this man from Christopher, who I have no idea, I've never met him before, he prayed over me and spoke the words to not be a professional Christian. And so I come to you today, not as a professional Christian, I come to you today as a heart changed and transformed by the Word of God. Amen. And not only by that, by who also follow Jesus, who have spoken into my life. Lord's pretty tricky, isn't he? Stuff like that just makes me laugh because there's no explanation of it. In the scripture, 1 Corinthians 14:26, it's Paul talking to us about the early church and orderly worship. We can go ahead and go to that because we're not going to stay there very long. It says, what then, brothers? When you come together, each one has a hymn, a lesson, a revelation, a tongue, or an interpretation. Let all things be done for building up. So, in all these things that we have here, it's not just about us coming together to receive. It's about us coming to participate. It's about coming to participate and to give. Because each of us have our own gift to give. And it talks about the different things that can happen. And the different things that we can give. But for some reason, we've gotten confused there. And this gathering has come about to be a group of people that come to receive and to get and to be entertained. And that's not what Jesus intended this to be. The very last line, it talks about, let it be for the building up, or let it be for the edification. See, that's two things, because we have to be able to receive to be built up, but yet we also have to give to be built up. But here is the coolest thing about this. Mike just came up and asked for prayer for Matt. And that was about the healing of Mike, but it was the receiving of Matt. Amen. And now his heart, I guarantee, is so full and so on fire right now that he can barely sit in that seat. Amen. And so now there is a story to be told. But what has happened is, for some reason, these things happen in our lives. They happen every day. We see them, we live them, but yet we just let them go. There was a healing that happened right here. Just now happened. Why are we not flipping these chairs up and just getting after it? That's a serious question. Why are we not? Because we're reserved. That's not what we were taught. That's not how we're supposed to act or behave. A couple years ago, going on almost 7 or 8 years ago. I was sitting at my house on a Sunday morning. And George was at his house burning up the carpet. Just pacing back and forth. Because the Lord was speaking to George. And he was speaking, and he was speaking, and he was speaking. The Lord was present, wasn't he? You didn't have to ask the Lord to come, did you? No, because he was there. He was present, and he was alive. But George had to go. And if he didn't, I would not be here right now. Amen. So if we want to talk about miracles, all we have to do is look at our own lives and look at what the Lord has done to us. The things I was involved in the night before George came should have put me in jail. My entire life would have been ruined because of that. Everything that I get to enjoy, everything that I have passion for, to this day, would not be. But the Lord intervened because He had something for me. But if it wasn't for George going, I would not be. And where we have been is, Lord, come. Lord, Lord, come. Jesus, show up. Jesus, show up. Guess what? He is. That's right. Because in each one of us, we carry along Him with us. So the Spirit is here. We don't have to look very far because He's already here. But yet we have to engage. That would not have happened if Michael would not have engaged right then and there. And I know what he's been through the past couple days. I know that shoulder's hurt. I know the misery that he has gone through. But it happened because he acted and he believed. And they engaged together in the Spirit and let the Spirit work. How cool is that? How cool is that? It's not just about asking the Lord to show up. It's about stepping out. Mike put himself, I don't know if you noticed what he said right before he started praying. You better show up, because if not, we're going to look like a bunch of fools. Guess what? The Lord showed up. That's right. We have to put ourselves in that position. It's not just about coming here on Sunday and having a seat, waiting a couple hours, complaining about the time, and then going. I coach basketball. An hour and 45-minute practice. We have usually around 62 of them every year. Just show up, put our practice gear on, and stand around and talk about what we were going to do, but never do anything. Guess what? Not going to get any better. But we're showing up, right? We're doing what we're supposed to. I'm giving up my time. But we're not actively engaging in the things that we need to do. And that's where we are. It's time to engage. It's time to act. It's time to tell. Because everyone here is a miracle. And we all have our stories. But yet, we suck them down inside because we're scared to tell. We don't believe it. Or we're deceived. I guess all those could be fall under deception. It's a miracle that I will get up and speak in front of people. Not because I'm scared to speak. Like, it is an actual miracle. Because when my grandma died a couple years ago, I started learning about my family history. And I started learning about great-grandfathers and grandfathers and my uncles who suffered through depression and anxiety that they would just run and hide. I have a great uncle who stayed at home his entire life. And I remember going over to my great-grandma's house and he would leave the room and go hide in the basement because he was scared to be in front of people or even talk to me. This was my great uncle. My actual uncle went through school and then left and moved to Colorado because he couldn't take being around people. I never got to know him. And I see those things in me. Genetically, I see those tendencies in me. I grew up in a house where you didn't share your emotion. You just stuffed it up, you crammed it down, and you got on with your life. And so then you become guarded about stuff because you're scared that emotion might come out and you have to do something with it. And you don't know what to do with it. So it is an absolute miracle that I'm up here just talking in front of people. I mean, it's so cool. The Lord started talking to me about miracles a couple weeks ago. We were in Sunday school, and George brought up something that was literally right in front of my eyes, but I couldn't see it. I just, spiritually, I could not see what was going on. In 1997, my father left the church. And he didn't leave it in a good manner. He left it angry, he left it bitter, and he left it with unforgiveness. And I watched my entire life and lived through that bitterness and unforgiveness. And, you know, I was in 7th grade when this happened. And being a child, watching things and trying to understand, it makes a lot of impure mixtures in your heart. You don't know what's right. You think something's right, but it doesn't add up when you kind of look at it. And so, you know, I watched my father go through the later stages in his life with a lot of anger and unforgiveness in his heart. And there was a point in time where, you know, I'd pray for him to come back to church and we'd do stuff and invite him to come back, and it just wouldn't happen. And it just kept happening and kept happening and kept happening. You know, a couple of years ago, I was ordained as a deacon here, and he wouldn't come. To the fact that he told me he would do literally anything for me, anything in this world, but go back to church. And so I gave up. I literally gave up. Then grandkids come along. And grandkids sometimes have a unique way of speaking. This past spring, at Easter, my dad went back to church. And not only did he go to church on Easter, he hasn't missed church since. Which is a cool, you know, I mean, trust me, it's cool because it wasn't happening before. But here's the best part. At one of my dad got to hear me preach for the first time at the park a couple weeks ago. And I went over there to him the next day, and he was just like, wow, I can't believe that. I said, oh, I can't either. And so he was talking to me about stuff, and he was bringing up, he pulled up a song on the TV, and he said, hey, have you ever heard of these guys? And it was Casting Crowns. I was like, yeah, they've been around for the past 15 years, you know. And but he's like, listen to this song. And it was the song Only Jesus. And
God's good, isn't
he goes, he said, this is the truth. He said, everything that we've done in this life, not going to matter at all. Not going to matter at all. I sat there and listened to that. And it was like, where am I? You know, like is this a... And not only that, but my 4-year-old daughter will come home and sing the songs that her and Papa listened to. I left that day, and all I could do was laugh because it was so comical that this happened. And it was just like, what? But I couldn't see it at the time until George told me that that he looked out the window one day and saw my dad dressed going to church. That is a miracle. That's a life changed. That's a patriarch of a family that has changed and will go down. And I'm so thankful for that. And it's not about my kids or me or my mom. It's about Jesus and the business that he's into. And that's restoring lives. And restoring hearts. And so we all have these miracles of our own. The things that Jesus has done in our lives. And I've shared with you a couple of mine. And you've witnessed one right in front of your face. Amen. So what are yours? What are your miracles? What are the things that Jesus has just shown up and has just blown you out of the water with? And there's no other reason or answer besides Jesus. Think about those things. Because here's the deal. I'm going to ask you to come share them. On Bloom's taxonomy, as a teacher, they tell you lecturing is the lowest level of learning. So we're going to engage with each other today. I invite you to come share. Share your miracles. Because that is us engaging in the Spirit for us to speak. Because hopefully me sharing a miracle that happened in my life engages this guy to share his. And that engages him to share his. And all of a sudden it just keeps going and keeps going and keeps going. That is how we edify the church. That is how we build the church up. That is how we engage in the Spirit. And not just come in and sit down and listen to Steph do 4 songs. Listen to a couple prayers. Listen to some up and talk. Then take communion. Then listen to the sermon. And then listen to the 2 songs. And then go home. That's not what it's about. It's about engaging in each other's lives. It might be going to pray for somebody. It might be coming up here, grabbing this mic and telling your story. Because if we don't know your story, we can't live with you. I want to live life with you. I want to do life with you. And I want you to live it with me too. But we can't do that if we keep separate. He just spoke about unity, coming together. And it's about taking big steps and stepping out. And oh no, someone might think you're different. Who cares? So church, come. Speak about the miracles in your life. Let what Jesus has done in your life pierce someone else's heart today. I'll have a microphone for you and everything. And I got a stool to sit on and wait.
I'll start it off. You got to point me out every time, don't you? The same way Kurt does.
He's right there in the front.
I've told it before, but I'll go ahead and tell it again. Let's look at my life just 4 years ago. I was working in the prison, making good money. That's supposed to be the pinnacle of our lives, right? Making that good money. Hey, that's how our value is, right? But what nobody recognized was I was drinking 2/5 of vodka every night. I was dealing with 4 or 5 different kinds of medications I was on while drinking. My marriage was failing. I was failing. Health was failing. I was over 400 pounds. I had witnessed some things in the prison that I had developed PTSD. And whether you say that's only for military people, then That's fine, that's your opinion. But I know what I struggle with on a day-to-day. So even though I've not been there in 2 years, I still struggle with these effects. I struggle with, hey, it's hard on my life. It's hard on my marriage. I come here and I put on a face for everybody. I put on, hey, everything's good. It's not. I'm slowly learning that I have to cut out things in my life that cost me my peace. Because if it's costing you your peace, it costs too much. I promise you. Whatever it is in your life that's causing you to stress, it's not of the Lord, right? Shane, hey, I don't know what I would do without you, brother. And I'm going to tell you about that November 17th when I'm up here. But Shane, he spoke into me a long time ago. When I was up here, and David, I've said it before, David and everybody, every man here, I was down here on this altar every Sunday, reeking of alcohol and reeking of cigarettes and praying God to take it away. But I wasn't willing to give it up. God's not going to take something we're not willing to give up. And the thing that Shane said was, the Lord is making me die to myself. So, that's what I started to do. I was dying to myself, and I'm not the best at it. But I can stand here today and say, I'm not on any medications. Hey, I don't drink anymore. I'm gained some weight back, but
It's all right, man.
it's all right, man. As long as my wife likes it, I don't care what anybody else thinks. But I've come to the point in my life where I'm fed up with being mediocre. The Lord has more for you. Are you willing to step into that? See, Michael Todd said, we want the Lord to just pick us up and set us over here where we want to be. But He's not going to do that. Sometimes you got to take that first step. Then the Lord will push you to it. You got to take the first step. You got to make the sacrifices. Jesus didn't want to go to the cross, but He said, it's not my will. It's not me, God. It's you. So I just share that. But again, I never thought I would play drums. I've had very many wounds with that. And then by the Lord's grace and Stephanie saying I'm going to, there was no other way around it. You know what I mean? So here I am. So that's just a little bit of me, a little bit of miracles untold. I'm not who I was, but I'm not where I'm going to be either.
Jesus actively engaging through others who will step out to change a heart. Who else is the Lord speaking to?
Shane, I don't need a microphone. I'm going to tell you, for me to stand up here, sit up here this morning and tell you that I'm an addict, that's not me. Because I hide. I would hardly ever buy a lottery ticket to Cessna. Because I was afraid somebody from here would see me. So, I mean, it got to the point this week where me and Sharon got in an argument about it. I would have her drive me to Circle K, or I would figure out a way where we could go to Royalton, or we could go to Marion, and we'd stop at Ziegler or Heron or wherever. That's a miracle for me to admit that I have an addiction, because I don't want people to know I have an addiction. I've been down that road before. My addiction is not alcohol. And like Trevor, I worked in prison for many, many, many years, 27 to be exact. I thought I had things well under control. The day I left that prison, my blood pressure medicine was cut in half. And I didn't see a whole lot of probably what Trevor saw, but I still saw enough. And I'm going to tell you, the biggest miracle in my life happened June 13th of last year. If I would have been 30 seconds later, 30 seconds, a half a minute, if I'd have been a half a minute later, or earlier, I'm sorry, if I'd have been a half a minute earlier, that gal would have knocked me for a loop down that street and probably drugged me. And if you don't believe in God, right out in front of a pickup truck and let it hit you. Hallelujah. Kind of along that same line, June 29, 1976. I remember these days. And I can tell you that happened at 7:29 in the morning in East Peoria. I don't know exactly what happened. I was rear-ended by a Kenworth at about 60 miles an hour. And I was driving a Gremlin X. And they said when I come through that windshield, I was on fire. And all through school, all I ever heard is stop, drop, and roll. They said I come through the windshield, down the hood, and I rolled immediately. If you don't believe in miracles, live through that. But I saw more miracles in that burn unit than my own. I saw my mother cry for one of her children. She's walking up and down the hall. He's here. I know he's here. I can hear him talking, but I can't find him. Well, no. When you're burned, you swell up immensely. But that's just my story. Everybody has a testimony. Don't be afraid to get up and give it, because it is a miracle in the making. You know, I struggle with a lot of things nowadays, mainly due to my own issues. But to get up off the couch and go walk or go do a 5K, I'm going to tell you, folks, that's not me. Because like Trevor, when I worked at the prison, we kind of went through this about 2 months ago. I called the hospital in Lincoln, July of 2005. I had a colonoscopy done. I weighed 277 pounds. Just to get up off that couch and go walk. And I don't walk a tremendous amount every day. I dropped 52 pounds. But it's just a miracle. But I owe it all to God. I don't owe none of it to myself. Because it's God that makes me get up off that couch and go walk every morning. And it's God that gives me this breath to do this. Amen.
Lord, actively engaged in Roscoe's life. Thank you, Roscoe. Anyone else hearing from the Lord? Oh, yeah.
I do want to keep this long. I don't care how long we do this. You guys come up here and talk. We'll pass a hat and get dinner if we need to. Before I speak, I just want to put like a plug in here. We have a room back here in the back corner of this church, and every Sunday there's some ladies in there that are willing to pray for you. They don't talk about it with each other. They don't talk about it with their husbands. They don't even want you coming in with a list of stuff to pray for. They just want you to come in there. It's an atmosphere that you, by making an X on that sign out there, says, I am coming expecting. And when you show up in there, whatever the Lord wants to say is what the Lord says. Do you agree? I mean, I know you've been in there. I've been in there. That was, and this ain't like a huge miracle, but I don't know if it matters if they're big or huge. But I mean, I was in there a couple weeks ago, and I just went in, and it was kind of weird for me because Crystal and Ashley both do life at my house on Monday nights, and so they know all my problems. And I thought, I'm just going to go in there, and these two are just going to let me have it. You know, you need to be dusting the house more and doing dishes, whatever. But anyways, they went in, and I left, and I was like, well, that was all right. It was painless. Well, the next morning I woke up, and God was just like, and started showing me all these things like what I do, how I treat people around me. I mean, and it wasn't even stuff they spoke, but through what He shared through them, and they prayed over me, healing came in my heart, and with me and her, with how I treat her when I'm disappointed in an outcome of things. I mean, it was crazy. So anyways, I would encourage I would like to see a backlog of people to go in there and just be expecting the Lord to show up. One miracle, I mean, I don't even know where to start, but I'll tell you about my story real fast. And I'm sorry, Roscoe, I don't know the dates because I was drunk. But I used to have a serious drinking problem. Now it's just food. On a boat, Wren Lake, probably the end of July because they'd already had July 4th. Friend's boat, we drank with these people all the time. I didn't have an off button, so it was just wide open until I couldn't walk. Anyways, long story short, we're sitting on the front of this houseboat. Dude's telling me about how expensive this anchor cost, and he's going to have to replace it. And about 10 minutes later, I noticed the rope to the anchor, the end, is floating out in front of the boat. And he's worse than I am and not a good swimmer. And he's like, I'm going to go in and get that because it's $300. And I was like, nah, I'll go in there and get it instead of you. And so I dive in, and as soon as I hit the water, I realized that the boat's no longer being held by the anchor, and it's floating away, and the wind's blowing. And I mean, like, it seemed like the wind picked up more. Waves were like 3 feet over my head. So I find myself treading water, holding onto this rope that has an anchor on the other side. That's the purpose of the tattoo. And I treaded water, and I treaded water, and I treaded water for what seemed like an hour. Maybe only 15 minutes. But in that 15 minutes, I come to the realization that my wife and kids who were floating away on this boat were going to watch their dad go under one more time and never come back up. And it was all because of choices I had made. It's all happened really fast now that I'm speaking it out. But anyways, in that 15, 20 minutes I was treading water, I told the Lord that if I would ever make it out of that water and back on that boat, that I would no longer, I would quit drinking, and I would just step up to what in my heart I knew He was trying to get me to do. And I don't know how, the rest is, I'm here, and I love Jesus, and so that's a miracle. Prayed for people in Cairo and seen healing and stuff. I mean, I don't know where to start. I don't want to shortchange anybody else who wants to speak, so.
Who? Cannon. Okay. Cannon. Okay. Make sure he got it. Okay. You want to go next? I'm going to tell a quick miracle, and then Cannon's going to tell his miracle story, huh? This is real quick. I want to tell this miracle story. I had an encounter with the Lord and got saved in November of 2004, and started going to church in January of 2005. Got baptized in May of 2006. So I think this was somewhere in between 05 and 06 or whatever. I was a very new believer. I knew nothing about Jesus when I came to the Lord. I knew nothing. I didn't know who Moses was. I didn't know who Noah was. I didn't know any of the stories that a lot of people grow up hearing and knowing. And so I was just learning everything new. Well, we were traveling to my parents' house in the suburbs of Chicago, and it was wintertime, and it was cold, and a rock came off of a semi and hit the windshield of our pickup truck and cracked it. There was like a nickel-sized gouge out of the windshield as we were driving, and we were so upset, and I was panicking, and I was like, what are we going to do? We don't have money to get this fixed, and we're traveling. We're going to be gone all weekend. And so get to my parents' house on a Friday night. Saturday morning, we go outside, and it had froze overnight, and we went out, and the windshield was spidered everywhere. It was just cracked everywhere. And I thought, oh, we're never going to be able to make it home. We're never going to get, we don't have the money to get this fixed. We don't have the time to get it fixed. And so I just started praying. And all of my newness and baby Christianness, I don't even know what the prayer was. It was probably, I don't know, so infantile at the time. But I just prayed my heart out that God would take care of that and somehow make that right. I didn't know how that was going to happen, but make it right. Sunday afternoon, we get in the car to drive home to Southern Illinois, and the spider cracks were all gone in the windshield. I mean, it was just, I was touching it, and I was like, Matt, can you see it? And he's like, no, it's gone. It's not there. I don't know. It's not cracked anymore. And so there was still a little gouge, but there was no, spider marks. We had that truck for another 10 years after that and never changed the windshield, and it never grew anymore. It never cracked anymore. So that was the very first miracle that I remember seeing as a new Christian, and it has stayed with me. And I think that's why I love miracles and I love testimonies, because they just encourage me. I always think of that crack. God made a way where, to me, in all of my humanness, I didn't think there was a way. So it's my miracle.
So, let me think. Okay. I got, can't speak, shaking. So, August 24th, 2011, I got diagnosed with stage 4 kidney cancer called Wilms tumor. It was about the size of a cantaloupe, which is pretty big. So, took about 10 months of treatment, 68 treatments, 3 ports, 2 PICC lines. And here's the thing, my body hated ports. I don't know what was up with that part, but yeah. Yeah, I don't really have a lot to say since I got diagnosed when I was 6, so. Yeah. 2 PICC lines. And then about 10 months later, May 22nd, 2012, got my PICC line, my second and final PICC line removed, sealed the deal, and then 8 years cancer-free in May. And then there's one more thing that I feel like now I have to tell because this is the complete story. So back in March, I went to a healing conference built by the Loft at the Marion Civic Center. It was like, I'm not going to worry about the date. Okay, but anyway. My mom heard a doctor there said, somebody's going to grow an organ. And we just both looked at each other, and I said, I'll take a free organ. Pretty much. So, night continues. At the end, I get prayed for. Felt the Lord's presence like crazy. It was most unreal thing I've ever felt. And I still believe it to this day. Haven't seen the picture, but I'm still going to keep the faith. I have 2 fully functioning kidneys. And yeah, that's pretty much about it. I don't know how to end it, so.
I have one that's going on the week if you have time.
Look at that. I ain't worried about time.
An hour is that time? Okay. This was several, my kids are now 34. Only 2 highways that goes east and west. There's one on the top and one in the middle. Okay. I was going from Chicago to Salem, Oregon, which is in the middle of in the middle of the state. I mean, on the far west, not as far west as you can get, in the middle of the state. And it was me and my 2 kids. Brianna was probably 6, and Adam was probably 4 or 3, something like that. And it's a 3-day ride. And I was on day 2.5, and I just crossed the Oregon border, and I decided, because it's 14 hours to go up and over and down, and I thought, that's an awful long time. I don't want to be that long. But it's only 9 hours to go from here across. Okay, so I said, okay, good. I'm going to do the 9 hours. I know that it's a small highway. I don't have the 4 lanes. I know I have to go through the mountains. I know I have to go through the desert. But I've been doing this like, I don't know, like every 2 years for 20 years or so. So I went down the middle of the highway. And it's getting to be about, there was no snow on the ground. It was like in the fall. It was bright and beautiful. The moon wasn't out. There was beautiful stars, totally pitch black. Up in the mountains, going across, I just passed, I don't know if you know anything, just past the Sisters Mountains, going through down by Mountain. So, I have this old Bel Air, it's a big blue and white car, big one. And it's, like I said, 2:30 in the morning, and I'm just traveling down the highway, and it's 2 lanes, and I'm in the mountains, like I said, and they don't have pull-offs. In the mountains, you just get cinder blocks, or cinders, on the side of there's no pull-off. I don't know what it's called. Anyway, so you just have a drop-off right there. Yeah, you just have a drop-off right there at the end of the thing. Now that, I'm going to put a little comment right there. About 3 or 4 years ago, if you remember, the Chinese had a bus that fell off the highway and rolled and killed them all. That's the highway that I was on. That is the area that I was in, okay? So, I'm driving on the highway, and I'm not driving fast. I'm going about 55. It's kind of fast for the mountain area. I'm going about 55, and it's pitch black, and I am the only person I've seen for like, I don't know, 3 hours on the highway. Then I'm coming down, and all of a sudden, I hear this whoosh, and it pushes me. I think it's a big log truck, okay? it pushes me off the side of the road. And now, off the side of the road means that my car, the big old dolly or whatever it was sitting on the road with two of my tires sitting on the drop-off where the scissors are. And my other two tires are up here on the side of the road. And I'm like, oh my God! And that's it. And number one, I had not been going to church. Okay? I separated from my husband. I had not been going to church. I used to have a drug problem when I was 2. I used to go to the Southern Baptist there. I can remember sitting on the floor colored while my, aunts are doing whatever I was at the church every time I was over. So I knew God, so I knew God. And that's why I said, oh my God, Jesus help me. And actually I just said, oh my God at first. And so I thought, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to get out of the car and assess the situation. So I opened the driver's door, and both of my kids were asleep in the back. Open the driver's door, and I start to get out, and the car starts going like this. And I'm like, oh, Jesus. And as soon as I said, Jesus, help me. And I'm like, get back in the car, and I see 2 lights. I'm standing in church telling you this, okay? I see 2 lights coming from the back of here. And they're like kind of like bright yellow lights. They just go like this. And this 2 guys, let me show you 2 guys. I really just saw one. Just really saw one. And they were in the oil coats, those old, anyway. They said, we're here to help you. And we just sat in the car. And I said, okay. I didn't know what they was going to do. What are they going to do? They ended up, one day, like I said, I never really saw the second guy. The guy I saw, and I didn't ever really see him either, okay? But what I saw was the oil coat pick up my car and put it back on the road. I swear to God. Next thing I saw, he said, see ya, and I saw 2 lights flying on that way. I swear to God. That is my miracle story.
I asked Steph to come back up here. We're going to finish, I guess, a little differently than what we normally do. But she sang a song earlier, and the title is Nothing Else. And one lyric in that song, it says, I'm sorry for what I've made it. We've made this something that it's not supposed to be. And so she's going to sing this song one more time, and this is what we're going to finish with. But here's what the Lord wants to do. Engage your heart. Engage in what you've made this be. What we've made this be. Because we can break out of it. That's the best thing. We've heard story after story of addictions and alcohol, life-threatening wrecks that should have taken our lives, and Jesus restored. Let's restore this body today. Actively engage, because it's not about what the person next to you is doing, it's about your own heart. And if you can't engage your own heart, then I don't know what to tell you. I don't know where to go from there. Because if we're always concerned about what other people are doing, or this or that, then we might as well forget it. You've got to open yourselves up to Jesus. And the only way to do that is to break off the old. And it's not easy. It's terribly hard. But it's extremely worth it. Because we can't be transformed without changing who we are. And we can only change who we are by opening ourselves up and making yourself vulnerable. Some of you are hearing from the Lord right now, and I ask you to dive into it. Some of you aren't paying attention at all, and that's fine. You can go ahead and go. But engage in the Lord and what He wants. Because it might not be about you. might be saving someone else's life, and their miracle starts right now because of you, because of what the Lord is telling you to do. Step into that. Put it on and wear it. Wear it. I got prayed over Wednesday night about just wearing Jesus. And man, it feels so good. Wear Jesus right now. Ask Him what He wants you to do. Ask Him to point someone out to you. Ask Him to point something out in your heart. Because you're not going to know unless you ask. And it's not going to happen unless you walk. You can burn up the carpet all you want, but until you walk out the door, the life's not going to be changed. Seek it out today. Seek it out. Someone might be depending on you.